All right, hello and welcome to the first Connell's Combat podcast of the year. I know we did an award show at the start of the year, but the first actual podcast where we get back into talking some upcoming fights and not the fights of last year. So yeah, the first card of 2022 coming up, Kattar versus Chikadze. Not a great card. A couple fights got removed from it. So yeah, just a decent card, but we're going to be talking about that, making our predictions on some of the fights, and more of the big news in MMA. So let's just get into it. The first bit of news I want to talk about is Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington's fight being announced. Now, this big thing happened with UFC 272, and it was going to be headlined by Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, and then co-headlined by Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling. But Volkanovski got injured, and they were looking for a replacement for Volkanovski, and they eventually found Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung, to replace him, but they didn't want to headline the card with Volkanovski versus Chan Sung Jung. So they moved those two fights back to UFC 273, and then they needed a main event for UFC 272, and they got a non-title fight as their headliner, which really only happens when either Masvidal or Conor McGregor fights. In the last 5 years, that's been the only two, I'm pretty sure, non-title fight headliners. So that just shows the star power that Jorge Masvidal still brings to the sport, and this is a huge fight, a huge rivalry, former friends turned foes, you know the story. But yeah, this is going to be a good fight. I think Colby obviously should be the favorite just because of the wrestling. But Jorge's got good takedown defense. It's just will Masvidal be able to handle the unrelenting pressure that Covington puts on, and can Colby stay safe from Masvidal's punches? It'll be a good fight. I think that the body kicks from Masvidal will be huge. He showed a really good body kicks. He's a really good body kicker in general, but he showed really good body kicks against Nate Diaz in their fight, and Nate Diaz is a southpaw, and so is Colby Covington. So Colby Covington being southpaw, having that open stance, if Masvidal can blast those right body kicks, and Colby doesn't like when people go to his body, that can help drain the unstoppable gas tank of Colby, which just never ends. Those body kicks will help deter that and make it more of a even fight if it does go to the later rounds. So Jorge's not gassing while Colby's just chilling on that amazing gas tank that he has. So yeah, this is gonna be a good fight. I said that 3 times. I'm a little rusty. And then we go to a couple other fights that were announced since I last talked to you. Well, we knew Ngannou versus Gane was going to happen, and Figueiredo versus Moreno 3 at UFC 270, which is next weekend. And that Gane versus Ngannou fight is one of my most anticipated fights of the year so far. Like, of everything they've announced, Ngannou versus Gane is going to be amazing. It'll be so... It'll either be a boring fight where Gane just picks Ngannou apart and never gets touched, or Ngannou will try to rush in and knock him out. Like, I can't wait to see how... Oh, I went backwards. I can't wait to see how Ngannou deals with Gane and vice versa. And that's just super interesting fight. And then obviously Moreno versus Figueiredo 3. That's a big one too. I don't even think this one was really needed. I think Moreno beat him soundly in the second fight. And yeah, it was a draw in the first fight where Moreno only got a draw because there was a low blow, if you remember. There was a point deduction. So Figueiredo would have won, but Moreno got a draw out of it because of the low blow. but it was a serious low blow. And yeah, I think just how convincing the second fight was with Moreno just beating him up. I don't know. I think they could have made it a little more fresh and put Pantoja in there, or even, I don't know. It would have been Pantoja, but Figueiredo is probably a bigger name than Pantoja. Moreno versus Pantoja for the belt probably wouldn't do great. So I get it. And then 271 got officialized, if that's a word. Whittaker Adesanya 2. We all knew this fight was coming. Whittaker was on a roll. No one could stop him. And Adesanya, obviously, on the same kind of thing since their last 2 fights, of course. Adesanya lost to Blachowicz, his first loss in MMA since that fight, like in the in-between. And I'm sure Whittaker watched that fight and wants to take some things from that, like using his wrestling, being more patient, because in that first fight, Whittaker was just running in there. He said in his interview with Helwani that I watched that he let his ego get the best of him, and there was so much bad blood for him, but looking back at it, he's like, why was there even bad blood? He wasn't really talking crazy trash to him, and the pressure of it being in Australia, him being the defending champion, I'm sure that all got to him, and he just ran at Izzy and got countered for it twice, gotten basically knocked out twice in one fight. But I think this time Whittaker will be much more patient. He will use his takedowns, his well-timed takedowns. If Adesanya likes to lean back on punches, if Whittaker can get him leaning back on a punch like he did that over and over in the first fight. Whittaker was leaning back, throwing left hooks, leaning back right hooks, getting out. But when you lean back, your hips are right there. So if Whittaker can feint some punches and then go dive on in the legs, that's what Blachowicz did, because it was in the 4th round and it was out in the open. You don't want to try, well, obviously you could try it, but the way to take Adesanya down, and it's been shown, is in the middle of the cage. He's got good takedown defense and good moves against the cage to defend takedowns. He's got that really good, he's got a overhook or a whizzer, I'm not too certain, but then he pushes on the head and scoots out the back door, and he did that to Vettori over and over. But if you can take down Adesanya in the middle of the cage, not let him wall walk, and time one of his lean backs and just blast a double leg right through him, I think Whittaker can get some takedowns in this fight if he knows when to take him down and doesn't just try to take him down against the fence over and over like Vettori did. But Whittaker's got to stay safe on the feet too against Adesanya, and Adesanya, I'm sure, is prepared for Whittaker's takedowns and stuff like that. Yeah, it'll be a good fight. Again, prediction won't be until probably the weekend of, and then UFC 270. I talked about the UFC 272, 273 thing, but yeah, UFC 273 now has Volkanovski and Chan Sung Jung, and then co-headlined by Sterling and Yan too. 2 good fights. Obviously, we wanted to see the Volkanovski versus Holloway 3-1, but this is some fresh blood, and I kind of like it. Makes it kind of interesting. Of course, Ortega pieced up Ortega pieced up Zombie on the feet, and then Volkanovski pieced up Ortega on the feet. So, if we're doing some MMA math, which never works, this should be a good fight for Volkanovski. But Korean Zombie's got power. He's really good off the counter, especially jabbing, and Volkanovski likes to jab. Chan Sung Jung is sort of susceptible to leg kicks because he stands heavy on that lead leg sometimes, looking for the counter, because you need your weight on your front leg to be able to pull back and right hand over the top, like he did against Moicano, where he just slipped right hand over the top of the jab. and Chan Sung Jung has some interesting submissions. Obviously, that twister that he got on Leonard Garcia back in the day, a couple Darces, I'm pretty sure, and yeah, I think Volkanovski's game plan will just be to stand with him, kick his legs. Yeah, Zombie's so tough though. It'll be impressive if Volkanovski could get a finish, because Korean Zombie's so tough. And then that Sterling versus Yan fight, I think a lot of people are going into this fight giving Sterling no chance at all, which I think they should chill, because Aljamain Sterling's he's got a chance with his jiu-jitsu at any point. Like the way he jumped on Corey Sandhagen's back out of nowhere. I think if he didn't, hypothetically, if Aljamain Sterling didn't jump on Corey Sandhagen's back in the first like 30 seconds, that fight might have looked like the Yan fight where he was, and Sterling was doing all right too. He was just pressuring, putting volume in Jan's face for like 2 to 3 rounds, but he got hit with a big right hand in the first round, and he was just getting hit with the bigger shots, but he was gassing out too. I think a part of it was all the trips that Yan was doing. That was just gassing Sterling out. But that pace that he put on Yan in the first round, that would be a tough pace to maintain for 5 rounds. But if he could do that and stay safe from Jan's counters, which is tough because Yan is just in there reading you like a computer. And in the third round, he's picking up on little things. And it's just, as the fight progresses, he just understands you more and more and more. He's an amazing fighter to watch as well. I think Yan should be the favorite, but don't count Sterling out. He could jump on the back, get a rear naked choke, get the Sulev stretch against Yan. That'd be funny. So yeah, those are a little bit talking about the up-and-coming fights. But let's get into my predictions for this week's fights. I was going to do all the fights, but man, I really didn't know a lot of guys. I knew some guys that aren't going to be in these 3 fights, guys and girls that aren't going to be in these 3 fights, like Brian Kelleher is fighting, Dakota Bush, what's that one dude's name? Gabriel Benitez. I know some people, I know a little more than that, but like I didn't know half of them, and I just couldn't be bothered to watch all their fights back on UFC Fight Pass. So I'm just gonna cover these 3 fights that I find the most interesting on the card, starting with a flyweight bout between Brandon Royval and Rogerio Bontorin. Now this is going to be a banger. Bontorin is a powerhouse at 125. He fought at 135 against Matt Schnell in his last outing on short notice, I believe, and he missed weight for that. So, and it says here on the UFC website that his walking around weight is 147. Whew. It's a big boy for 25. That's 25 pounds that he's got to cut. Whereas Brandon Royval, 135, he walks around at. So this will be an interesting one. Bontorin obviously had that bad knockout against Kai Kara-France. That might be where some of you know him from. But Bontorin showed a really good check left hook in his fight against Matt Schnell. He just showed really good leg kicks, and he just hits hard. You could tell he did miss weight, but he's a little tank at 5'5". And Royval got the 4-inch height advantage, but only a 1-inch reach advantage. He does kind of have short arms for his height. Like, not, you can tell he doesn't have long arms, but Royval's a wild fighter. He gets into these brawls. That one with Kai Kara-France obviously comes to mind. He's out of southpaw, and he fights with his hands down, looks for knees, elbows, decent boxing. His kicks aren't amazing. They kind of look labored, but they're effective. and he kind of keeps his hands down a lot, which gets him tagged with punches sometimes. And I think he's coming off of 2 losses, if I'm not mistaken. The one to Moreno, where he hurt his shoulder, and the one to Pantoja, where he got choked out. And Pantoja had his back for like 2 minutes just working on getting that rear naked choke, and then he eventually got it. But if I were to make a prediction, I think that Royval will be a little too open in the exchanges, and I think that the left hook of Bontorin will be a big weapon. He won't be able to throw his calf kick that he likes because Royval's in that southpaw stance. And I mean, you can throw inside leg kicks to the thigh, but throwing calf kicks to the opposite stance fighter, like when it's southpaw orthodox, it's kind of tough. You're basically asking to get a shin, like you're asking to kick a shin. But I think Royval will try to use his boxing, and he'll get a little too close, and Bontorin will land that left hook, just like he was against Matt Schnell. I think it'll come over the shoulder. But Royval's got that 4-inch height advantage, so it'll be tough to get it over that shoulder. It's a close fight, but I think I'm going to go with Bontorin in this one. Even though Royval's a homie, and he's pretty dope. What a compliment. Brandon Raw Dog Royval. What a nickname. Oh. Then we go to the next one. Katlyn Chookagian and Jennifer Maia. Now these two are 2 former title challengers. And I think they're both coming off of wins, but it's too early to get them in there for the title again because they both got dominated by Shevchenko. Less Jennifer Maia, more Katlyn Chookagian got dominated. Chookagian had nothing to offer, really. And Chookagian's tall for this division, 5'9". She's got the same reach as Royval, 68-inch reach, but 42-inch leg reach, which is long. And she has good front kicks. She's got long boxing, but she's got 0 power in her hands. And I guess that's not super uncommon for these smaller women's divisions, but man, she can't. I don't think she could knock out friggin'. I don't know. Like, she's just got no hands. She has 2 finishes in her career, 2 KOs in her career, and they're both knees. So the only way that you're really going to get hurt by Chookagian is if she lands a knee or like a perfect head kick. But even then, like, you watch Chookagian and she has these long distance strikes, but she just has no oomph behind them. And they're just kind of like tapping the people she fights, and it's just like they move forward. And Jennifer Maia got some good boxing, kind of like fights like hands high, shoulders, like kind of tight, moving her head. Mike Tyson-like, I want to say, but not at all. And she's got decent jiu-jitsu. She had that nice armbar against Joanne Calderwood off of her back. So I think Maia might want to take this fight to the ground and look for some submissions because just of Chookagian's length for the division. But who do I think will win this one? I could see Chookagian winning by just keeping her away with front kicks, jabbing, and winning a decision. That's probably my guess. I got Chookagian by decision. Calvin Kattar, Giga Chikadze in the main event. Calvin Kattar obviously coming off of that huge, devastating pounding against Max Holloway where he absorbed the most strikes in UFC history. So let's hope he doesn't do that again for his own well-being. And Giga Chikadze is coming off of the 2 big wins against Cub Swanson and Edson Barbosa. And in that Edson Barbosa fight, he looked amazing. He was fine with, usually when you fight Barbosa, and you want to strike with him, you want to... Did that end my... No, it's still going? Okay. If you're fighting Barbossa and you want to strike with him, that you want to push him, you want to pressure him. Sorry. So usually if you want to strike with Barbossa, you have to pressure him against the fence and just get in his face and crowd his kicks. That's usually how people survive against Barbossa in the striking, but Chikadze was fine with just being backed up against the fence and picking shots. You could tell Barbossa was really worried about that Giga kick, the one to the liver, and he had a whole setup to block it, lifting his back knee, since he's an orthodox, lifting his back knee and guarding his head with the arm, and he had a big fortress set up against that Giga kick, and Giga can work out of both stances. When he goes to southpaw, you can tell he's trying to find that left kick to the body or to the head, and out of southpaw, he's got good boxing as well as orthodox. He's got good kicks out of both. He's just an all-around solid kickboxer out of both stances, and I think that will give Calvin Kattar, who is mostly a boxer and struggles with kicks, like kick defense, I think that'll give him some issues, because Giga's got quick kicks and Kattar's got to get into boxing range, and I would say Kattar is the better boxer. Pure boxer, I think Kattar's got more power and he's probably got a better jab, but Giga has a really good jab as well. Giga's boxing is really good too, so it's a close fight, but I just see Giga having more ways to win, and I think that loss to Holloway will have a big effect on Calvin Kattar, because you can't take that kind of beating and be the same afterwards, really. It takes a piece out of you, and I think Giga is on the way up, and he just has more ways to win this fight. I don't think Calvin Kattar will try to wrestle Giga, which he probably should. He should probably try to mix in some wrestling, which would open up his boxing. So, but I just don't think he will. I just think he'll box. And like I said, Giga, with those kicks, I think he's got more ways to win. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go with Giga Chikadze. Don't know if he's going to finish Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar's immensely tough. So this might just be a 5-round. I wouldn't say a beatdown. I think it'll be close. Like, Calvin Kattar will always come forward, but yeah, I think I'll go Giga by decision. And that'll be the end of the podcast. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the fights this upcoming week. Yeah, I don't really got much else to say. Peace.